Well, we have been through a lot of crazy ups and downs, downs and ups. Trump bombing Iran and then calling for a ceasefire, going through with the ceasefire, and now Israel and Iran aren't playing nice. So I don't know what's going on. Who knows? Israel could want to escalate even further and bomb Iran just a little bit more. Excuse me, Donald, we were promised regime change. This is not fair if you don't give us regime change, okay? I thought we had a deal. I don't know why BB has a French accent or what I can merely come close to as a French accent, but let's watch this CNN clip explaining that our U.S. airstrikes did pretty much absolutely nothing. All it did was show the world that we are the world police and we will do whatever we want, whenever we want, to whoever we want, regardless if we think they may or may not be on the cusp of World War III or not. So.
Three sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on three of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
That's right. So this is an assessment that actually is out from the Defense Intelligence Agency. That is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it was based on a battle damage assessment conducted by U.S. CENTCOM after the strikes, according to one of the sources. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand, who has this exclusive new reporting. This is to that question that has been asked about how much damage has been done. This is a real question. It's also a political question that has been to something that Donald Trump has been sort of dealing with here recently. What are you learning, Natasha?
Yeah, look, Brianna, this is the first assessment that we are getting that the U.S. intelligence community has found about the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these three Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence.
So let's just assume that we didn't do anything and what was that? Let's just assume that we didn't do anything to these nuclear sites or whatever they have. I would say, in my humble opinion, that Iran would be completely idiotic to not start developing a nuke. Now, there were rumors that, maybe Russia will sell them a nuke. Maybe China will sell them a warhead or whatever. But I don't think that's going to come to fruition because they don't want escalation into World War III. However, there's no way they're not within a month or two of being able to develop a nuclear weapon at this point. I mean, Bibi Netanyahu's been screaming about Iran making nukes for the past 30 fucking years. So if they haven't been researching at least since Trump pulled us out of the Iranian nuclear agreement, what have they been doing this whole time? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating that they do make nukes. I would prefer that the world completely pulls out of nukes and does a worldwide peace agreement and, doesn't escalate any further than needs to be. But being realistic, the only way for a nation to protect themselves from, let's get real, American imperialism is to have a nuclear warhead readily available. That's one of the main reasons we don't mess with North Korea, because they have a nuke and, their leader is on the fucking edge and he's about to break at all times. So, would I be surprised if Kim Jong-un, pulled the trigger on something like that? I would be surprised because I don't think anybody really wants to use nukes at this particular day and age. But, you know, it is a reason why we can't just go in there and, you know, say, hey, what's yours is ours and what's ours is ours. Okay. We're just going to have one Korea now. And this is the leader over here. But that's America. Welcome to it.
Intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment.
You know, I've also been seeing a lot of people ask, well, you know, if they got nothing to hide, why does it need to be, you know, however many feet under the ground? Well, I mean, it's a very highly radioactive substance they're working with, you know, enriched uranium that they use in, you know, the medical field. They use in energy. They use it in a lot more things than just weapons, right? Weapons is like, you know, the last thing anybody wants to use it in. That's more of a deterrent than anything. But, you know, nuclear energy, I'm a big advocate for. It just needs to be highly, highly regulated so we don't have to see things like Chernobyl or anything like that again. Or, you know, what happened, you know, what was the Japanese place? I'm blanking on the Japanese city that their nuclear reactor was in, and then it got hit by a tsunami, and you know it fucked some shit up. But you know, we need heavily regulated things in the nuclear energy field, or else it's just not going to work out too well. You know. But yeah, back to my main point, you know, before I got sidetracked, it's underground because it's very radioactive. So if a reactor or if something breaks and there's like an exposure, it's not just floating through the air. It's contained in a certain area, which is smart. It's what we want, you know, not to glaze up Iran at all. You know, I don't know much about the culture. I just know they have a higher literacy rate than we do in America. So, I mean, I'm sure they got some very smart people over there that they know how to regulate and keep everything safe, you know, safety first.
But she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their targets, total obliteration." Now, it is worth noting here that there has been dissent, I should say, within the intelligence community, within the defense community, about just how much of an impact these massive bunker buster bombs would actually have on Iran's nuclear facilities. It was far from certain, given that these bombs had never been tested in an actual combat scenario, whether they would actually penetrate those very, very deep underground tunnels that lie underneath these nuclear facilities. And what we are told is that as of now, this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, it does conclude at this point, again, it is still very early, that those underground facilities, including the centrifuges, including the highly enriched uranium that everyone has been talking so much about, those are largely intact. Now, of course, this does stand at odds with what President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have been saying in recent days about the impact of these U.S. military strikes. Of course, President Trump said it was totally obliterated, and Secretary Hegseth did as well. And he actually also provided CNN with a statement And he said that, quote, based on everything we have seen, and I've seen it all, our bombing campaign obliterated Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. Our massive bombs hit exactly the right spot at each target and worked perfectly. The impact of those bombs is buried under a mountain of rubble in Iran. So anyone who says the bombs were not devastating is just trying to undermine the president and the successful mission. Now, our source.
Now, but can we really believe anything that Pete Hegseth says? I mean, he was probably hammered drunk when, he was slurring this this statement out. Based on everything we know, I've seen it all. Our bombing campaign obliterated Iran. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, Pete Hegseth, you fucking drunk. I mean, talk about unqualified for the position. If there's any one person that's the least qualified for any position in this administration, it's Pete Hegseth, and that's saying something because we have RFK Jr. heading up the Health and Human Services.
Sources did emphasize here that there was severe damage that was done largely to the above ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months. Boris, Brianna.
Natasha Bertrand, please stand by. Let's go now live to CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins, who's traveling with President Trump as he attends a NATO summit from the Netherlands. Caitlin, you heard the statement there from the White House. They acknowledged the existence of this assessment, but said that they disagreed with it and then attacked the sourcing behind it. What are you hearing?
Yeah, and I think it's notable that when we reached out to the White House for comment on what Natasha and Katie Bowe had been hearing here from these sources about this initial assessment, that they provided statements not only from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, obviously, who is designed to respond to media reports, but also from the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth himself, given he is on the record talking about what he believes the results of these strikes were here. Now, the issue here at hand is obviously this is an initial assessment. We're still waiting for a comprehensive assessment to be done. And as Natasha mentioned there, certainly more information could come to light. And that is how this works as they are in the early days of assessing this. But if this is the assessment that stands as it is right now and what the DIA found, according to this report, that undermines what President Trump has been saying publicly about the result and the impact of these strikes and what they had on Iran's nuclear program. Just this morning, he has been quite defensive about this, saying it's not enough in his view to just say that they were sufficiently damaged. He is saying they were completely destroyed and obliterated, and he's been defending the B-2 bombers and the pilots flying those B-2s that took these bombs over to Iran on Saturday night and dropped them on top of these nuclear sites at great lengths, as he did as he was leaving the White House today. So certainly it would undermine and undercut what the president himself has been saying. But I do think, as Natasha mentioned there, this is an early and preliminary assessment, as they're still waiting to see what the other findings show. But this was the big question going into this. And I had actually asked President Trump this when we were on Air Force One last week coming back from Canada, because the bombs that were...
I mean, what really stops Iran from moving all their nuclear speaking is hard. Moving all their enriched uranium to different locations, knowing that Israel is always pushing to bomb Iran, basically. I mean, and Iran would have been stupid to think that a donkey on the edge like Donald Trump would just sit back and not feel like bombing him, I mean, he already... his first term, he assassinated a top Iranian general. So what makes us think that he wouldn't have done something like this? I mean, yeah, I think everybody in the world simultaneously was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, this is gonna snowball. And, there's still time to snowball. It's only been a few days. But, yeah, back to my point, Iran would have been stupid to not move their stuff around, especially when Israel started attacking them. As soon as those attacks started happening, I feel like the move would have been to, slowly start moving their shit elsewhere in undisclosed locations to the world, and therefore, you know, continuing research, continuing to hopefully not make a nuke, but consider making a nuke to deter the U.S.
Used here, Boris and Brianna, had never been used in combat before. Yes, they'd been heavily tested, but they'd never actually been dropped on any site before. And the question I had for the president was, did he have assurances or any guarantees that conducting these U.S. strikes would actually take out Iran's nuclear program? He told me there were no guarantees in life, but obviously that's a key question that we were told he was also asking his officials behind the scenes, is how would this play out? What would this look like? Because
Exactly. If only we had a small piece of paper that didn't have some weird president's name, some Kenyan president's name on it, right? You know, what, Barack Hussein Obama, a piece of paper that said Iran shouldn't be making nukes and giving us 100% entrance into their nuclear facilities to monitor them all day, every day, all the time. And according to the IAEA, they were all spot on the entire time, right?
as we know, the president, even with
Trump is
military
such
action
a
in his
fucking
first term, does go through these assessments in a pretty thorough manner to want to know what the other end of this is going to look like.
Yeah, and certainly this is something, Caitlin, just put into context, because President Trump is there in the Netherlands, as you are there following this very important NATO summit. And he has been, projecting this great success. He's also there at this summit that is so much tailored to him. He's riding a little bit of a high as he's there. So any sort of perceived slight to what he considers a great success, and so far the holding of this at least brief ceasefire so far, how is he going to perceive that?
Yeah, and the president has been at NATO summits before where things did not go well. I mean, everyone remembers the Brussels summit of his first term, where he walked out of the room at one point. So often when he comes to these, and there is a new NATO Secretary General this time, who was sending the president messages earlier today that Trump was then posting screenshots of on Truth Social, saying that they were essentially waiting for his arrival here, as he just arrived a few hours ago. A lot of this is going to focus on defense spending. A lot of it's going to focus on Russia as well. The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, is going to be here for his meeting with the president. It is only their second meeting since that fiery Oval Office meeting that happened a few months ago. And so that is something everyone's going to be watching closely. But the fact that the key takeaway here, as going into these summits, they largely decide what they're going to talk about beforehand. Though obviously when President Trump is in the room, as his own aides will very, very well and readily concede, things can change, and you'll always know what the outcome is going to be. But the fact that it is tailored to be on defense spending, which is his chief complaint with NATO countries, that they do not spend enough on defense, does show the impact that he has on the conversations that are held at summits like this one. But he was wanting to come into this with...
Yeah, I mean, of course, America spends the most on NATO because America wants to be in charge and wants to be the world police. I think everybody else is spending a substantial amount of money for NATO, for defense and organizing, as a force against evil, if you will, but it should be expanded upon. Maybe even, I hesitate to say let Ukraine in, because that would escalate things with Russia, but come up with some kind of deal between Russia and Ukraine, and, I don't know. I think NATO should be expanded and all that good stuff. Let's get into this one. What Trump had to say.
Mr. President, the Middle East just woke up to a new dawn because of the ceasefire. Mr. President, Israel said ceasefire breaking is impact.
I don't think so, but I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit, and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous.
How will you let it respond if the ceasefire is fired?
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And
Oh, you're surprised that Israel isn't falling in line because last time I checked, it seems like Israel's in charge of everything, the way they act. I mean, let's get real. They know what's going on because Epstein was Mossad, Israeli special forces or special intelligence or whatever. And, you know, Trump's going along with it to keep his blackmail down. More than likely, they got stuff on the Epstein files or whatever, but that's, you know, that's a big side now. That's a conspiracy theory as it stands, but, you know, I wouldn't doubt it. But what does Trump expect? Of course, Israel's going to just go do whatever they want all the time, every day of the week, because they feel like they can. We allow them to do whatever they want all the time. Therefore, they're co-signed because America says we can. You know, it's fine. You know, all these people over here, Gaza, who cares, right? We're just going to blow them up. Oh, America, you want to send in aid? Nah. Aid doesn't sound like a good time. You know what sounds like a good time? Mowing the grass. And, you know, Israel has come to realize that they are in charge. They know they're in charge. They get to do whatever they want and still be funneled money from the United States. You know, we fund them so fucking much. So much. And yet they have a single payer healthcare system for their citizens, and us in America, we could just die, I guess. Dying sounds good. It's crazy, dude. I mean, what does anybody expect?
And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. All I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Are you going to see the agreement? It's a new dawn in the Middle East. Thanks to the agreement you managed to achieve. What are your future plans for the region, for Saudi Arabia, Israel, Gaza, the hostages?
Look, you're asking me about women in the Middle East. It's getting a lot better. Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out far faster than I thought. So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East.
No, I'm talking about a new dawn in the Middle East that you managed to achieve last night.
Yeah.
The region is going to a new place with this agreement. Can you tell us what's your future plans for Gaza, for the hostages?
Yeah. It's a new dawn. I appreciate the question. You're very nice. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm Neria Kraus from Israeli Channel 13 News.
Well, we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Did you get to speak with the Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night?
I speak to everybody.
You urge both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
I'll see if I can stop it. You know what? You know what stopping Israel would take from a president? Hello, Prime Minister of Israel. Knock it off. You don't want to knock it off? I don't care. If you don't knock it off, we're not going to send you any money anymore, okay? Okay? No. You have to knock it off. Okay, bye. See? That's all it would take. It takes a phone call. You know? Obama did it. Bush did it. Clinton did it. They make them knock it off because that's what we have to do as America. We make Israel knock it off because we've basically funded them and their existence. Yeah, they're a sovereign nation. They can take care of their own funds and stuff, but we treat them as a floating we treat them as a unsinkable warship in the Middle East that we can just use as a giant base. of operations and then do whatever we want. But, you know, it's also escalated by, you know, Bibi Netanyahu, because they think that they could just do imperialism, you know, when imperialism is America's job.
How confident are you
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to, you know, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing?
The fake news is saying that we didn't do a good job destroying Iran's nuclear facilities. I'll tell you what, Communist News Network, we did super duper good. Do you know how big those bombs were? Those bombs were massive, biggest bombs that I've ever seen. It wasn't the Moab, but they were giant bunker busters, and we busted some bunkers.
They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean.
Do you believe that Iran can rebuild its nuclear program?
Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable...
This is coming from a guy that won't even apologize to the people that he's sexually harassed, okay? He doesn't apologize to E. Jean Carroll for what he did to her. You know, in fact, he doubles down and said, I would never do such a thing. She's disgusting, you know? So he expects people to apologize to fighter jets that are dropping bombs, but he won't apologize for people that he's assaulting. Okay, awesome.
Networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch it.
You don't watch it. Donnie, let's get real, bruh. You don't watch it. You don't watch the Communist News Network. You don't watch CS or MSDNC. You don't watch anything that comes close to even the center. You know, you watch Fox News. You probably watch some One American News Network, and then maybe some crazy shit like Tim Pool or something, because your son watches that shit and he shows you clips of the Beanie Boy. But you don't watch any of this other shit. Don't be lying, bruh.
Garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think
that's pretty true. It's all manufactured garbage that they say what they want you to believe and leave it at that.
CNN is a gutless group of people, and the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times, but the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement, the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not...
BB came in. It was big. He dropped some hot loads on there. The biggest loads I've ever seen. I've never seen a bigger load come out of anybody. But Bibi, oh boy, he had some big loads on him.
Not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically.
That must have been they must have blurted out. That's the part where he drops the F-bomb right there. Oh, you can't say that on YouTube. He said something about I don't like the way neither of them are fucking acting right now or whatever. You know, it was pretty stupid, but you know, the decorum. I wonder if any of the decorum police on the right are going to come out and Trump is not using decorum. He's just really mad that Israel is not doing exactly what he wants. But, you know, the State Department rep isn't.
The pride of being able to be here and do work that facilitates making things better for people. And in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. It's an honor.
Did you have to throw that in? Where are all, you know, since this video clip came out, I have not heard one America First Andy come out and say, oh, she needs to be deported. She needs to be thrown out of here. ICE agents, come grab her. She's not American anymore. She said Israel's better than America. No. You know why? Because all of the Republican Party is paid for by the Israel lobby. The vast majority of the Democratic Party are also paid for by the Israel lobby. You know, it's why we can't have nice things in this country because, you know, one, we have to funnel money to places like Israel in order for them to commit genocide and, you know, just do whatever they want all the time forever. And two, because, you know, we are also at the whims of corporations, you know. Every corporation out there also has their hands in our government, therefore limiting what we can and can't do in this country, you know. I don't like that there. But yeah, I mean, I haven't heard one America First person come out and say this lady is a goddamn disgrace. She should not be able to hold her position anymore because she does not represent the United States. She represents Israel because she literally just said Israel's better than the United States.
Honored to be able to make a difference and to be able to speak in this regard with an administration that I love so much and that I feel genuinely represented by. It's a real honor.
Now, which administration is she talking about? Is she talking about Bibi's regime or is she talking about Trump's regime? Because she wasn't really clear there. You know, she told us that Israel was better than America. So, you know, I assume one daddy is better than the other daddy, or are they double teaming, going double daddy on her? I don't know. And we're going to watch this clip. I don't know if anybody remembers her, but, you know, she got to go up and speak for a second and, you know, speak for all immigrants in this country on why Donald Trump should win the election.
I'm Hispanic and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump. We love.
You see Trump down here just fucking copping a feel on the sides right here, just patting her down like, what's up? You want to see who you're voting for? I'll show you in a second.
We love you! We love you! All the way to the White House!
Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during...
I don't want to make this political, but, you know, the fact that she was up there politically. Does she not want to make it political anymore because, you know, her daddy is the one involved, Daddy Trump? So it's going to make him look a little bad, even though obviously, you know, everybody on the left was saying, as a immigrant, you should not be voting for Trump because Trump is bad. Trump doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your family. He doesn't care about anybody except himself. So if you think that you are safe voting for this fascist, you got something coming, you know? And then almost directly into his office, he basically did a hard fascist turn. Not that he was already fascist. Let's get that straight. He hit all the guys of being fascist in his first term. Okay. But this was obvious. And this is not a sentiment held by just this lady. I want to say that real quick. It's not just this lady. I have insider information of people I've spoken to, and it is not rare that, like, say, immigrants from Mexico, males in particularly, men from Mexico, if they become citizens, they tend to gravitate towards the Republican Party because they're just like all the rest of our Republicans. They got the I got mine mentality, right? I got mine. You need to get yours. I worked hard. Why don't you work hard? You got bootstraps, don't you? So they get their citizenship, and then they start shitting on all the immigrants that do not have citizenship, all the illegals, if you will. But it's crazy, dude. Like, you're going against your own family members at that point. You know, I could see where the sentiment comes from like a member of the KKK, and he would vote for Trump because he wants America to be white. You know, this lady, on the other hand, she thinks that Trump's going to make it better and make it easier for her family to come over to America. And that was not the case, and that was never going to be the case, you know?
In the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a lie. He's gonna go after anybody that is not a legal U.S. citizen. Like, and you got to be like, for real. Like, you got to be holding that green card. You take that motherfucker with you everywhere. If you get caught without that thing, sorry, you're illegal again. Don't know what to tell you. Shouldn't have crossed that border. You know that's a misdemeanor, right? We take misdemeanors in this country very seriously. Felonies, not so much. Felonies, you might become president. Misdemeanors, nah. All you're going to get out of a misdemeanor is deportation. Welcome to America, right? And then we got this. 128 Democrats helped Republicans kill a resolution to impeach Trump. Now, am I surprised? Let's read a little bit, see what it says. A majority of House Democrats have killed Texas Representative Al Green's articles to impeach against Donald Trump. The House voted 344 to 79 to table Green's resolution on Tuesday, just hours after the introduction. Green filed articles of grounds of abuse of presidential powers by decreeing the separation of powers, devolving American democracy into authoritarianism and unconstitutionally usurping Congress's power to declare war. Now, am I surprised that 128 Democrats voted to not impeach Donald Trump? No, I'm not surprised. Why am I not surprised? Because, you know what? I could have made that bigger, huh? Yeah. I am not surprised because he is all these people are paid by the Israel lobby. And not only are they paid by the Israel lobby, they're paid by other lobbyists. And, you know, big business, they have a reason to like Donald Trump. Therefore, they're going to keep him in office as much as they can. Right? So, is it ridiculous? Yes. Has Donald Trump overreached and went into authoritarianism? Absolutely, without question. You know, or else you wouldn't see all these ICE raids going on. But let's see. These are all the people that went against him? Let's see. Yeah, that's crazy. There's one from Oregon. That's not my representative. Yeah. Only one from Oregon. You know, what are you going to do about it? But if your representative is on this list, make sure you do not vote for them again. Okay? That is very important. We can't have people like that, you know, running around Congress. Oh, I saved a couple good ones for the final, the ass end of my stream. This is just, you know, classic hypocrisy of Trump supporters. This video has been floating around a little bit, so we'll just check that out.
We're going to start out and I want to share some leaked audio. And, you know, this is audio of Trump saying some things, and we need your candid thoughts on what to do, right? This is not out at this point, but we need to have a plan in place on how to react and respond to this stuff if it ends up in the media. So.
Look, I need cameras in the dressing room. You know, cameras on the wall, cameras on the floor, aimed up at their whatevers. I want the best cameras.
They need to be aimed up at the whatevers. Put them in the toilets. Put them above the toilets. Put them in the bras. However you need to do it. I know those cameras, they can get really small, so put them in the shoelaces if they have to be.
Set up by the best Chinamen. Understand?
Yeah, well, that could be a violation of...
It's to make sure that they're safe.
Safe?
I mean, look, I can't be there all day. I'll just start grabbing them. Believe me, for them, not me. I'm a man. They're beautiful women. It's totally natural. You know, sometimes I'll walk in naked. So then we're all naked. I mean, if they file a complaint against me, I can file it right back at them. The Jew lawyer taught me that one.
We need to have a plan in place on how to react and respond to this stuff if it ends up in the media.
Well, this is obviously old. It's before he decided he was going to be a politician. I personally don't care. I just don't care.
See, I like him because he says all. I like him because he says all that. We love it when he says whatever.
I like it. I like the way he talks. You know what? Donald Trump, you can put cameras all in my house. Do whatever you need to do, Daddy. What's up? And then the guy before, oh, it seems like a very old video. It showed 2006. Oh, this was before he became a politician. You know, it's awesome. It's awesome that Trump supporters don't even know the history of Donald Trump. You know, he literally ran for presidential office as a third party candidate in 2002. Maybe it was 2000, but obviously he lost because, you know, he didn't go for the right party. You know, if he would have went Republican off the bat, he might have had it, you know, because like he said in like the 70s or 80s, while he was a Democrat, you know, if I ever ran for president, I'd run as a Republican because those people are really stupid and easy to manipulate.
That's what everybody thinks and won't say. And with that personality goes those kind of comments most of the time.
As a man, I know I've been in situations, we've been in locker rooms, it's man talk. I've done it, said it, they've done it, said it. I've been around plenty of men, professional, I mean, you name it, every man has said something to the effects that, you know.
That they'd like to put the camera in a teenage girl's changing room.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one.
We'll be back with lots more of Donald Trump. Don't go away.
Okay, so am I doing all right, Larry? Because I'm a little woozy. I just get back from giving blood for this paternity test.
So what do they have to say?
It's for Ivanka. I'm double checking that she's really my daughter. You know, I don't want to go my whole life and find out that she was fair game after all, you know?
Your own boy.
It's just that she's voluptuous, successful, and, you know, frankly, I heard she's great in bed.
And we're back in 5,
Okay.
4.
Does oral count as incest?
We're back with Donald Trump and it's all over the board tonight.
You see all the gears turning in their head like, oh man, I gotta come up with something hot for this one. I mean, come on, Trump. You gotta give us a little bit of wiggle room.
Okay, so how do you feel about this one?
He's complimenting his daughter, like in his head type of thing.
Yes, it's crass because that is his own daughter. He's still a human male. As a male, I do say some things.
Dude, this last guy, he was the most Reddit moderator ass motherfucker on this panel. Of course he was gonna say some shit like that. Of course, he's a human being, and let's get real. Ivanka Trump, okay, bro, come on, let's get real. Trump, what are we gonna do with you? Well, hopefully impeach. But you know, if the House has anything to say about that, that's not gonna happen. I will say, going back to this impeachment article, maybe there was just too much language in it. I'm going to run a little bit of cover for these Democrats. Maybe the language just was a little too harsh. I need to look into the resolution a little bit. I guess can we see it right now? I don't know. But, yeah, Al Green, he got what it takes. I mean, this was a good one also. Let's check this video out.
The American public knows what this bill does. One of the little things that it does, would you please read page 901, line 20?
I think it'd be better if you read it.
Oh, he doesn't want to read it.
I'll
read it.
I know the
well, actually,
legislation, but I'm
Ranking
not
Member
be
Moore,
part of your little
Ranking Member
show
Moore
here, so you can read it.
It was a question if you would read it, so I'll ask Ranking
I say
Member
no?
Moore to read the text. This is in their bill. They don't want to read a line from their own bill. Ranking Member.
I don't want to read the bill for you.
Bro, you're on a hearing and they're talking to you about this bill and you refuse to read it. Like, what kind of piece of shit are you, dude? Like, just read the bill. We know you haven't read it yet. 'Cause that's why you don't want to read it, because you haven't read it before and you don't want to read something that sounds incredibly insidious, right? As a classic Republican, you know. But because Republicans, you know, in the Senate and House, for the most part, I doubt they read any of these monstrous bills. They just see who's signing off on them. They say, okay, well, if Trump's doing it, wait, do we have money for my state? Yeah. Okay. Do we have money to take away from the poor people in my state? Better question. Okay, follow-up question. Do we have money to kill people in my state? No money for that this time? Okay. Maybe next, can we get it on the next one at least? Oh, awesome. Cool. Thank you.
I'll help you out. I am testifying about this legislation. I'm not going to read the bill to you.
Okay, I am. This is amazing.
Ms.
You are
Lager
on-
Fernandez, shall I pass this back or shall I read
No,
it for
why
you?
don't you just read it?
Section 111106, repeal of excise tax on indoor tanning services.
So they're going to repeal, they're repealing an excise tax on tanning beds. Okay, so if you have a tanning bed, you get a little bit of a tax break. And if you need a hospital bed in rural America, I'm sorry, you're out of luck, right? And I don't know where this particular provision came from. We do know that there are certain elected officials who appear to have a certain orange hue about them, that maybe they want to make sure that tanning beds get a little bit of special credit. But really, we are prioritizing tanning beds over hospital beds in rural America. So that the American...
I mean, when has a Republican voter ever even considered voting in their best interest? You know, that's why they vote these monsters in, because they don't give a fuck about themselves as long as the immigrants, you know, don't get anything nice either. Right. You hear that argument all the time on why we can't have a Medicare for all single payer system, whatever you want to call it. Well, you know, all these illegals and lazy people are going to get free medical services, you know, and I'm going to have to pay for it. Dude, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're already paying for that. It's coming out of your pocket, you know. We're subsidizing, you know, lower class people, and well, as somebody who's come from very lower class, you know, I'm speaking from a point of authority. You know, I wasn't one that had health insurance, but, you know, could have had health insurance. But anyways, you know, we're already paying for all this shit. The only people getting screwed is the people in middle America. Not middle America like Nebraska. I mean, the middle wage earners of America. And I mean, you know, anybody from the bottom 50%, no, probably bottom 70%, all the way up to the bottom, or all the way up to the top 10%. You know, those are the people that are getting the big swings of getting fucked over. But, you know, it's just crazy how we treat the American citizens. But, you know, we can't have health care, but we can tax subsidize people who want to buy tanning beds, because that really helps, right? These tanning beds are really helping out America. You know, I wouldn't want to see RFK having to go into the tanning salon like we seen a video of him the other day. You know, he should have one at his house. You know, he's important enough. He deserves a room with a tanning bed, okay? And, you know, it's really mean, but Trump won't let the administration use his tanning bed. I mean, yeah, it's a spray booth, but, you know, tomato, potato. But anyways, that's all the time I got for you guys today. Everybody that stayed and watched a little bit, I really appreciate it. And I will